So today I thought we'd talk about this thing here, which I've had for a while now, and it's the orange Pedal Baby 100. And I haven't had the chance to use this at a gig just yet until now. So a quick word about the setup. So I play in a 4-piece metal band. I'm the only guitarist. I get to play in stereo, which is pretty awesome, especially for the in-ear mix. And usually we have 0 stage volume. So up till now, we've been lucky enough to play some fairly big stages or outdoor events where, you know, there's a good big PA and there's quite a lot of room in front of the stage. But for this, you know, we're talking about a bar with a stage of maybe about 80 to 100 cap. And so people are very close to the stage and the PA is sort of hanging up over there. So people in the front row will get maybe less of the PA, if that makes sense, or maybe that's my OCD brain thinking too much. But my thinking was, you know, well, there are cabs available, the other bands are using cabs, and they all have stage volume. So this would be the perfect opportunity to try this out. So here we are in the preset that I used at the gig. The only difference is in the cab section. So I use the ML Sound Lab Damon 60 IRs, the 57B and the 57C to be exact. And in this preset, which you can download through my usual downloads, link below, I put in 2 other ML Sound Lab IRs that are factory with the Fractal FM3 and Fractal units, and that is the Bulb 57B1 and the Euro 57C1. They're hard panned left and right. I've only slightly lowered the level of the B1 as it has, I think it's a darker mix and it's a bit louder in comparison, so you get a better level between the 2 stereo signals. And then the big thing was the align tab. So in the align tab, I aligned them better so that you'll get a tighter and more focused sound. You can play around with that a bit, but I find that having them really well aligned gives the best sort of tone for me at least. And in the preamp section, nothing too crazy, I'm just using the modern preamp type to add a bit more character. I thought I'd quickly show my setup tab, specifically the audio tab, so you have an idea of how I'm setting my inputs and my outputs. So I'm only using input 1, set to analog, it's a 12 dB pad, as my pickups have fairly high output. Output 1, so the XLR output, is in stereo, plus 4 dBu, phases are normal. And then output 2 is set to line level plus 4 dBu normal phase. Now the big thing here is the split. As I'm on the FM3, I'm using a send and a return block to get more lanes. And so I'm splitting after the amp, the gate, and also the delay. So it's kind of as if the delay was in the amp effects loop, and then splitting before the cab and the multiband compressor and a parametric EQ that's going out on the XLR output. And so before that split, I'm going out to a parametric EQ, and most importantly, and this is sort of the trick that works well for me, I'm using a graphic EQ. So the thing is, when going out to a cab, typically the sort of gigs I'm going to play, I'll not be using one of my own cabs, and I only have a 2x12 over here. So typically you're going to be sharing cabs or sharing backline. So the way I've set it up is that, you know, I've got a parametric EQ here that I put in there in case I might want to look at, say, a low cut. But I found that I didn't really need that. But what worked incredibly well was using a graphic EQ. So my reasoning behind this is that quite often, you know, as guitarists, we're used to using an amp into a cab where there will be like bass, middle, treble, and presence. And so converting that into sort of parametric EQ where you're sort of guessing certain frequency ranges that might work or not with a cab, If it's not your own cab that you can really dial in specifically, where something like this might be really cool, having something like this, a graphic EQ, that is maybe more broad strokes, as it were, I find makes it really easy to sort of quickly dial in to a cab or a volume level that you're playing at. So having something like this, you can just quickly dial in, oh, I need some more treble presence, or even take that away, and get the sort of tone that you want. An extra tip to this, I would highly suggest adding these to the perform page, so the per preset performance controls. I've done that here. I've added the bass, middle, treble presence control, as well as the gate threshold and some parametric EQ stuff, so that on the FM3 itself, I can page over and then I can quickly tweak those settings without going into any menus. Now, an important part here is in the amp setup itself, specifically the speaker tab. So in the speaker tab, I would look at putting the speaker drive, speaker compression, as well as speaker thump to 0, and putting the output mode to solid state, power amp, and cab. Now, if you're always using your own cab and you're taking your own cab to gigs and things like that, you can mess around with the speaker impedance curve to get different responses based on the cab you're using. I found, for me at least, just leaving the default speaker impedance curve here worked well on my VHT 2x12 at home, and it also worked well at the gig. But these are things that you can further tweak to really dial things in if you have the time to do that, and of course if you're using your own cab. And apart from that, despite all these blocks which I use in different scenes, the bass tone is pretty simple. So a filter block with a low cut and a high cut, a slight boost. The amp itself is a Spawn Q-Rod OD2-1, so kind of modded Marshall vibe. Nothing too crazy here in the tone settings. And I'm using an aggressive sidechain style gate. Link to a video where I go over that more in detail up here somewhere. Now the thing about the delay block, I've set it up so my preset is essentially, it's stereo. So there's hard pan cabs and there's a bit of stereo effects going on, but they're all mono compatible. By that I mean that the hard pan cabs, they're fairly similar in sound. So one's a brighter sounding mix, one's a slightly darker sounding mix. And the delay itself, you know, there isn't too much of a difference between the two sides. So I've changed the left-right time ratio. And by pulling that down even more, you can get some different sort of time signatures or tap BPM on one side and the other. And I'm just lowering it a bit so there's a slight difference in the quarter note tap tempo between the two to give a bit more width. But if you were to take just one of those outputs, the delays would still sound as if it was like a mono delay. Now, outside of that, the signal going out to the XLR is going through the cab block, a multiband compressor to control those lower mids, and then a parametric EQ, which I've set up for my front of house PA sound, which has a low cut, a high cut, and a few small dips in the high mids region. So the thing for me on this is that, you know, I've grown up using real tube amps, cabs, pedal boards and things like that, and playing gigs like that. And so in the last years, going to a completely self-contained digital rig through in-ears has been a really great experience, especially given the sort of sessions I've been doing or the gigs we've been playing and the way our setup works. But having that option of a really portable way of getting back like stage volume, should there be cabs available, of course, has been really interesting to see how that affects the live experience in a, I think, a positive way. So are you using a digital model of some description and then a silent stage? Or do you have live cabs as well? So do you have a pwramp and a cab that you're using or some other kind of setup? I'd be really curious to know what you're running out there. In any case, I hope that was useful. I've put this preset along with my other Fractal presets in my usual downloads on my Ko-Fi page, so the link is below. It's free or pay what you want. A huge thanks to everyone who's picked up those presets and also those who have left a small donation for that. It's very much appreciated, as these sort of videos, they take quite a bit of time out of my daily or weekly schedule. So getting some money back through that is very much appreciated. And if you like this kind of content, please drop a like and subscribe, as it really helps me out. I hope to see you in the next one. Take care.